Okay, there you go. We're recording it now.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I'll get it and put it on YouTube for you guys like I do. And you can make it a hidden one if you want, so that it's internal. It's only you guys. Okay, so let's get started. So we did that. Now there's some other parts that I do want to bring up that just affect the performance in the system or what you're looking for. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to actually go look for somebody, and I want you to see some of these basics. I'm going to mess with Bethel Park just to keep it simple and kind of organized. Okay, the system runs mostly on groupings and date ranges and such. It's all transaction based, but for example, everybody always asks about like quality of data and information. So I just want to make sure we're aware of the things that are affecting your grouping and your reports. Okay, and things that would affect that would be like, let's just take this guy right here. When we're looking at somebody, and again, for the experienced users, this is stuff you already know. But since we're going to record it, might as well have a value on there. That they're
Hi, Megan.
That client code that gets assigned on to each parcel is absolutely important because it's simply grouped by that. Real easy going. You don't have any bad data, but if you did, or missing data from like a report or something, it's as simple as, hey, that value needs to be on the record or it will not qualify for a report when you're sorting by, say, the client, or what we call the municipality or the client. Does that make sense to everybody? Because I know that was a really basic thing. And if you're doing nods to everybody, elect one person to give me the yes, no, and I can move on from a topic. But does the significance of that code make sense of how it's used in reporting?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I can go 10 minutes on here if you guys can get that done. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, good. Your stuff's almost ready. All right. So then the other one too that we've talked about using is the where is it on yours? Start moving around. I might have to close this video thing or all your faces on here because they're making it hard to see what I'm looking for. John, we might not be able to do the video. I don't know if you see how long what it's doing to my screen with all those people, but this code, that's the town, that's like the municipality inside of the client. Can you guys give me an example of one of those things where what's a city's name inside of the client? Because I always get confused on that. Like Moon has stuff inside of it, right?
Crescent.
Moon Township and Crescent.
Okay, so Ann's helped me on those codes as well. They were numbers in the old system, so they might not mean as much, but they're supposedly codes, I guess, that the county assigns like that. But those two things are grouping tools for you all when it comes to like the distribution report and such. They don't, now this is important, they don't do anything else. So I don't want to imply that they have some kind of magical powers in the system. They're just grouping tools. When they're on the parcel, like if you catch one that's in the wrong district by, I don't know why, but like the municipal code or the mortgage part, you can just change that. It will regroup that into the proper category when you're doing something. So it's very important that you know that the system is flexible like that from a data standpoint, that as long as you've got it categorized right, it's going to do what you want. The other part that is to a new user that's important is under view, when you're drilling down to other data about the parcel, current charges, this is how this works. And again, for the experienced users, this is going to sound trivial, but anything that is got a gross greater than 0, that means that it still has a balance on that line item, will show up in the current charges. As soon as the gross goes to 0, it will no longer show up on this screen. It'll show up on the past charges. All right, that's important to know so that again, you don't experience some kind of frustration there. You're looking in one spot and it's the other. That could confuse you. Now it is per line item though right now, so you have to think about that. Is that if they are making payments against old years, you could have half a year here and the other half on the prior charges, which is right up, same idea, but it's right up there under past charges. Okay, so it's important that you know that. Now that has nothing to do with output. It's just about being organized on where they currently stand when you're trying to work with the account. But like from a reporting standpoint or whatever, it doesn't care. It just shows, whatever the charge is on the output. The other thing before I get into payments is where they come from. So anything here, everything's categorized and you have different fields that make it have weight with you all. For example, tax year is very important to you. We all know that. Tax year is very important. The only ones that may trick a new user are some of those, what you all call like just cost, or I think maybe even call them cost and fees. I get a little confused on cost and fees, meaning they, in the old system, they didn't have a year. And I think, and we put them as, I think in the old one, they were 9s. And now we put them as 1s because that way then, because they get in your pecking order, they get paid off first. So hopefully you understand, I'm giving you a lot of background as to why things behave the way they do inside the system. There's rules to how to process things. So by default, am I right in just calling, can I just call that fees, or do you, fees and cost? Is that, it's the same term as far as payoff order, right?
Correct.
Okay. So
Right.
Ann and I put 1s in there because they're not associated with a specific year, which can be tricky. You know what I mean? From the old system, can be tricky like that. So where you see those in there, I think the idea is to keep them as 1s. Okay. If you all adopt a different strategy and change them to a specific year, that's fine as well. But you need to know what you're looking at. So the system, when you go to take a payment, and I'm going to show you this, it sorts the payoff order by that tax year first, because you're supposed to pay off the oldest stuff towards the newest. And so Ann and I put all 1s in there. So that way, then those would show up first, because you guys also pay off all your fees and cost first. Okay. So super important that you know that that year is really factoring into the behavior when it comes to payments. And then I think the other obvious thing would be is that year is also used on, tax certs and statements and printing and whatnot. The biggest thing that you all have brought up as users is when you get when something comes to like a printout, like a tax cert, and it doesn't look like you're expecting, and like Ann and I spent a lot of time over the months organizing this, like, why does it look like that? And it's usually because a piece of data is wrong. It's that simple. And what we want to do, I'm on your side on this one too, is, hey, if we can keep standardizing these processes that you do things so that I know the order that you're doing them in, Rick and Brandon and I can write tools in there to make sure that the data stays as clean as possible. And I know that's one of the ultimate goals, so that you experience as few, exceptions as possible. So in here, what are some of those things that do that? The tax year is the number one thing. You guys don't, I know it sounds silly, but you guys really don't use the dates. Those are stamped in there. So you don't really use those. You're using the tax year. And then the other one that messes with you that you guys talk about is the lien date and lien ID, these things. Okay. Now the data behind the scenes, your forms do not like empties. Okay. Empties are bad to computers. So sometimes we autofill things. You will not see a lien date. I'll get you to this in a minute, but that 1900 thing. Okay. That was something from months ago that we caught, and I've cleaned those out. All right. But keep it in your back pocket, because I caught 100 of them, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But the lien date and the lien ID, those two things are what affect your tax cert. So again, why am I bringing this up? Because we're about to go into payments where all this becomes relevant, but you got to know which fields can mess with you in your process. And on a tax cert, every line is organized for a client by the lien date and the lien ID, and then per tax year, So you've sent me examples before where you'll see 2 lines for the same year. And the answer is very obvious. It's, hey man, one of your charges in here is missing that value. And so it's causing it to group them as 2 separate lines. And it's as simple as putting that value in on the line that doesn't have it, and then boom, you rerun the tax cert and it's fine. But the reason I bring that up is what most of you as a user would say is, yeah, well, how did it get that way? And that's what we're trying to say is, if things are done in a predictable order, then you won't have that. But if there's any kind of jumping around or something like that, Ann and I have found that over the months, that you can miss one. And here's an example. Do the manual lien update, but then apply the lien cost afterwards. So then the lien cost line would not have the lien ID and lien date on it because it was done after we stamped those values on the other lines for that tax year. And I mean, you're sitting there with them like, does that, are you getting nodded heads, or can I move on, or what do you think?
Yeah, they understand that.
Okay. All right. So I'll move on from that. That's cool. But those are the biggest things that affect you. The one other thing is this, do you see this one down here called next interest date? So the way the system works, and again, is probably the last thing, but this is math, so it affects the calculations in the money part. That next interest date field tells you, or you can visually see, when is the next time the system thinks it needs to calculate interest on this account. So for example, if that said 5/1 in it, then you could run it. It's not going to do any math on the account because it already knows, hey, I don't have to touch this until 5/1. And it really is that simple. It just looks at whatever today is and compares it against that field and says, oh, it's May 10th and that says 5/1. Hey, I got to do interest on this. So that field is involved in the interest calculation and what we're doing. And there were early, again, why I bring this up, that dreaded 1900 thing. In the very beginning, there were times where we didn't know it was being stamped in there, and that it created a fake inflated value on the interest that we've gone back then and what are you going to say, corrected or whatever, reset to what it should be. So that's fine. So each month when the button is pushed, and you may ask yourself, like, that's going to be one that you'll ask about is, hey, do you have to run the interest monthly? The answer is yes. It's a process right now. And it just looks at that and it runs it per client, and it advances it to the next month. And then so 5/1 becomes 6/1, and it knows the next time it needs to run it. There are certain functions that, like tax certs and stuff, that also can run that calculation on demand. Some of the thing, and the reason I bring this up, I know I'm like, you guys are like, hey, you're 20 minutes in on this. Why? The reason I'm doing it is because this is that troubleshooting area of knowledge that, honestly, I mean, Ann and I went through all this stuff so we don't want everybody else to have to go through it, because we already lived through all that garbage in the beginning of trying to figure out what it was doing based on certain dates. So there are some procedures like the tax cert, and this is my final example because it's on our development board. You have a tax cert that's a one-off, 111, and letters that you run 111 at a time. Those were because they came from your old system as far as design. But what we all have agreed to now is, hey man, those are opportunities to run more as a batch instead of a one-off. And if we can do that, that will allow us the efficiency things that you're talking about and allow us to grow, which is what we want the company to do, is grow. So I'm going into payments now. I'm going to tell you, we learned about on an account, it's got a client code that's keeping it organized. On the charges, if there's a gross greater than 0, it's going to be in the current area. If it's 0, it'll be in the history. If it is, the tax year is very important. We learned that it does, when we get into payments here, it does organize by what kind of category it is, like a cost or a fee or a penalty or an interest or tax. And then we learned about the lien ID and its significance to your tax cert. And then the next interest date is how it affects your calculations. Those were all background things that I thought would be valuable to give you a foundation, so we can move it forward. Okay, cool. By the way, I'm going to stay in here, but I think the guys have been trying to look through my window telling me that everything's done and ready, but I don't want to break our flow with what we've got going. So let's go into the first one I have. I did my sessions, got my little punch list here. So we're going to move over into this one, and let's just start with doing just a simple payment. Okay. And again, yeah, you can ask anything you want. And I'm going to just use this one from, I wrote down a couple accounts ahead of time.
Cindy, did you want to bring something up on payments on how that's tied to the daily deposit report and why and all that?
Right. Yes. With these deposits, that's the number that I'm going to be using to match the distribution report and all the numbers on what's been collected. If these are put in, that's why we have the procedure set up for you to make all the deposits first, make sure they get in daily, then do all the posting. All of this is part of trying to get the end result at the end of the month that we want, and which is making the distribution report as easy as it can possibly be for me to finalize everything and get the invoices out. This will also prevent me from having to go to you guys for questions like I've been doing. What's with this? What's with that? All of these payments being followed through, and refunds being put in the system, credits being finalized in the system, all of that is going to give me the ability to run a report at the end of the month, which will show me all the refunds that have to be sent out. It'll show me all the credits that were applied. All of this, it's all geared towards making the end of the month much easier system than it has been in the past. All of these procedures, I wanted to say too, have been reviewed with and discussed with Megan and decided by the partners that this is the way they want the procedures to be. So if you follow all of these, everything will work smoothly and hopefully, and if we find out that things aren't working the way we thought they would, they can be tweaked. But so far, we've noticed that with the daily deposits and the postings, it's worked very well. I mean, everything's getting in on time. Everything's been running pretty well with all of that. The deposits are being finalized. You guys have been doing a great job on that, getting things finalized right away. But all of this is geared towards a good product at the end of the month and timely invoices to the clients and timely refunds to everyone and all of that. So that's what we would like you to do. We'd appreciate if you follow these guidelines, and everything should run smoothly. If we have any problems, we'll address them, but let's at least give this a shot and see how it goes. That's about all.
Okay,
That's awesome.
I wanted to say this quickly. So the timeliness that you just talked about, right?
Mhm.
So the focus now for everyone is as now you're getting the deposits in and putting the transactions in, on this great way, quickly. Now we got to focus on anything that is a refund or a credit or a return. A refund back to, where if it doesn't cover in an account and a check needs to be sent back to someone, all of those things now need to be as current as the others, especially within the month that they happened. Because when it crosses over a month, then we have to go to the following month. And of course, something like an NSF, sometimes you don't find out for 10 days to 2 weeks later. And that's just the way it is. But any credit that's put into the system, Chris is going to go over this, has to be put through the entire way through the system. It's either going to be applied to charges and there's going to be a balance left, or that credit is going to constitute a refund being sent back to the taxpayer for some reason. So that too is all super important under the timely column in order to have the report work for Cindy.
Right. So if you could do that as you when you post the payment, you're going to know if there's an overpayment and that refund needs to be applied. So if you do that at the time you're posting, everything will be in the system timely. And anytime I want to or need to, I can run a report on what refunds need to be made. All of that being done on a timely matter as you're going and finalized to the end would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, makes sense. Hey, I can spin that in another direction too, just from watching you all, and just from 20 years of payment processing, type stuff. Is my role is to try and make sure that you can process things the way you're doing them in the flow of the system, because you got too much going on to have to try and remember to go back and do it later. That's the number one thing that I see with you guys and any of my customers, but you guys have so much going on that I got to put this in here, or I need to at least make sure you know how to do it. Or if you catch a weird scenario, we got to make sure we've documented it. So that way, then if we need to build it into it, we could. But the point is, it's got to be part of the flow, because the odds are you won't have time to go back and do it later. It's just
Right.
that, or we'll forget. It's just that easy. But if you give it to me in a way that I can document it for you or do it, then I can produce it and it takes some of the pressure off of you. So like in this case, we're just gonna do a normal payment. Let's pop a normal payment. No big deal. We're gonna do a normal, then maybe we'll do a short, then we'll do an over, and just make sure that you get that. You may have noticed the guy said that it was ready, so I popped over to my dev site so that way we could use it on here. So I have not done anything in yours, your live site, besides create those sessions that I'll just delete out. So in this one, let's start with the first part of just searching. Again, I assume there's different ways to search for things. Output wise, we're updating your output on everything you do, where we're trying to incorporate as much info on an output. So when it comes back to you, you've got multiple ways to search for it if you would need to, not just one. And Ann, I know you know what I'm joking about. Because I know that the map is everything to you guys too. And you know that I swear by putting the parcel in there, I have to. Regardless, we've tried to be good about doing that stuff for you. If you do a string search, and I'm sorry, that means just type in a partial amount of information, it would bring back a list of people to pick from. If you type in an exact match, it'll go straight to the payment screen. Okay, that's important to know. So you don't think, why is it one way and then another? It is consistent for that. Now, if they, on this one, I'm going to go with what's the kind of the normal flow for, current ones and what they owe and such. This comes in here, 38, 31, 81. If they're just paying a full payment, it already defaults to it. Okay. There are different scenarios that we can do on some other times. We haven't even talked about, I'm sure we'll do a training down the road on payment plans and such, because there's other factors that can happen. But let's just make sure we digest this screen, how it works, and how to get out of it what we want. So number one, when it comes on here, boom, it's going to default to everything you need. Technically, I don't have to do anything if they're doing something. I might do a check and then type the number and then, and take the payment. That's the gist of it. Now, purposely, I hit view charges because I want you to see that. So right here, you can see what's out there. Okay. And I'm very real about teaching you, in the way we instruct in this. This will all automatically put them in the order that they are to be paid. Ann and I went through that, months and months ago. That helping me on making sure that the order is what you're expecting. So that way, then on these kind of standard accounts like this one, it's in the order, and you don't really have to think about it. You just take the payment, and you type in what you want and go from there. I bring that up. We're going to leave it alone for right now, because in the back of your mind, you're going to have that example of a real old one that sometimes you got to click some buttons there to make sure you only pay off the things that they're paying towards. But in this case, the majority of your payments like this are for, you just sent the letter out, they're paying it. In like this case, that you don't really have to touch anything. I'm going to let it default. I'm just going to pick a check. I'm going to, boop, 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 put something in there. and I'm just going to take it. Before I hit take payment, is everyone okay with the idea of just an easy one? I know for a lot of you, you're like, duh, we've been doing this for forever. But some of you are new. And like I said, I mean, Kenny doesn't really do payments or whatever. So kind of just, in case somebody wants to make sure they're cool with this. I'm going to hit take payment unless somebody says, hey, wait a minute, I just had a basic question. In 3, 2, 1.
And you good? I think everyone's good.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to go boom. I'm going to go take payment.
By the way, entering check number is hugely helpful if there's ever a problem with this check. When Cindy has to look this up in the bank deposits, if there's an NSF or something like that, check
That's
number.
true. Yeah, didn't think about that, but yeah, I mean, all those little things make a difference. That is true. Hey, and I'm sorry, I didn't mention it, but there was that message box that I know you guys do use down at the bottom. And then on the receipts and stuff, we keep modifying the receipt to have more and more of the content that you want on it. So that stuff's important as well. For example, I don't know if it probably hasn't been copied into this one yet, but oh yeah, it has. Like if I would have typed something in the message, it would have shown up here as well. So from an audit trail, you'll have that on there. And these receipts now have a lot more content on them than they used to, based on what you all said. Yeah, I made sure that was on there. And I know that there's even more plans for other things that you want to do. But I think that's important. And that is all in then the data. Okay, so you can reprint this or bring it up whenever you want. It's on their account. It'll be on their account. All that data that's in there is available for reprint or email out or whatever you want. Okay, so that idea of that first payment, let me just follow my notes to make sure, that I'm sticking with it. I'm going to do that one, then I'm going to go back and do that one.
Chris,
Okay.
that was a payment, an entire payment that paid.
Just like a normal paying it off. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just
Right.
That's a very typical one I wanted to do first because one, it's the easiest. Two, it's the very same scenario of, hey, we just mailed them a letter and they paid it. Okay. That's what that would be. Okay, good. So then let's go do another one. Let's follow that. That one, I'm going to do that one too. Okay, so now let's just let's overpay somebody. Well, I'll underpay one just so you can see that because that's super easy as well. Okay, so again, the most important thing here is to get this field needs to be whatever it was they paid. I know that sounds dumb because you're like, yeah. I mean it like that, is that you got to let me get that difference column for you so that I can then take some kind of action for you so that you don't have to try and remember to do it. For example, like, factoring in, an overpayment or something. Let me do it. And so that way, then it'll track it for you. And then you can have other options to you. But in this case, let's just say they paid, I don't know, $1,000, let's say. So immediately it's going to have a difference. I can still pick, how I did it. Again, this is real. I know for you, this is real basic. But what's going to be different here is the idea of whenever the difference column has something in it, whenever that field, has something in it, you have to pick some kind of action. I know you guys know this already. Again, I'm doing this for the idea of, there's some other people on here that haven't seen this before or done it. So the action, though, are different. If it's an underpayment, you only have two. You're either going to leave it as a balance on their account or you're going to write it off. Okay. I'm sure you guys have some kind of standard office procedure. For example, like this, you would not write off, obviously. But if it were a couple pennies or something, maybe you do that. Maybe that's the procedure. They're making a payoff and they're off by, pennies, and you're like, okay, they're done. You guys have that. That's part of your procedures. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what the effect would be. Because if I did do write-off, it would then make me pick Y over here.
So this is a decision, a supervisory level decision on write-off. Like, this is not something to take lightly,
No, it's not. You're right. It's not to take lightly. What most of my customers do, though, is it's documented. It really, they've made it very straightforward. So that way, then the team knows, hey, what are we supposed to do in this circumstance? You know, I can see other ones in here. I don't know if Ann and I did this, but I've seen some users do this. I'm trying to read that list real quick. Like some people treat, you can set up as many names in here as you want, entries, so that way then the reporting is richer. And I know some people set up stuff like sheriff sales are write-off, right? Sheriff sales when we do get the money or we don't. Which one of them we don't get the money? Which one is it?
Sheriff sales, sometimes we get the money, but and then sometimes it doesn't satisfy the balance, so we write off the balance.
That's
that
what
right?
it is. That's what, thank you. Okay. So my point is that sometimes people will add to this, and they might even put a more descriptive description of like, who is that? Moon Township write-off sheriff sale, because there's no limit to how many you have. And the benefit is it's simply for a note or a record keeping standpoint. You could see how much money went into that style of write-off as opposed to like something else, you know, a normal one. Okay. So that, I think that is important to know that you have that ability. And again, I'm just focused on the idea of designing. Now, notice when I went back to leave as a balance, that then there's no problem. You know, it doesn't care at that point. So then I'm just going to, again, I'm going to take that underpayment. Okay. Now, I bring this up on purpose for what can be a good suggestion. Ann had this one a while ago, but we have to come up with rules for this. So it's kind of like if you're taking notes, I'm doing this on purpose because I don't know how often we're going to do this. The idea of I did leave as a balance, and Ann has had the suggestion on here. It's like, should we put the remaining balance on the receipt? You know, I mean, that's valid. It's a valid, you know, point. And my answer for a lot of my customers is yeah, we do, but it's not quite as simple with you all. Okay, because there are many times where somebody might owe you for, Lord in heaven, they got like 100 years worth of back taxes on them. And you may be making a payment towards some of those line items. So you might not have highlighted all the line items to pay towards. So it would make my remaining balance misleading on the receipt. So just so that everybody in the room knows, I said, I did not say no to putting the remaining balance on the receipt. I just said it's not as clear cut as you might think, because it's the receipt is only dealing with the data that was involved in the actual payment. Okay.
Well, the resolve for that is you run a client statement with your payment receipt.
That is true. Yeah, absolutely. That is true, that the statement is more about what you're saying of where do you stand, whereas in our mind, the payment is more about the transaction you just did. That is correct. And wording it like that. Yeah. Okay. So that one we left a balance. So if you went back to them, and to us, gang, that's just a partial payment, right? That's a partial payment. So that could have been a payment plan. It could have been anything. And again, I know we're probably going to do a different training on the idea of payment plans, but there is logic in there about the payment plan amounts that I'm sure you'll be taking advantage of in the months coming. But right now, any questions on how straightforward it is to, if it's a less than payment, a paying short, that you just simply type in what you want and have to answer that leave as a balance or write-off. And again, I think everybody's probably pretty cool with that, but if not, I'll do the old, 5, 4, 3.
I think we're all good here.
Okay, thanks. Okay,
So Chris, so can I just say, so the fix isn't to go back into the data and change the amount due in a certain category.
Right.
Like, let's say there was a write-off. I mean, let's say that I told I talked to a taxpayer and because this happens every so often, and I'll say, okay, we're going to waive the servicing fee for this account, and you're going to make a payment, and that'll resolve it. Is that a place where you check different boxes and then put write-off at the end?
Megan, that's a nice example. Okay, great.
Sorry, I did that slower.
No. Hey, let me just give you the idea. I won't go totally down the path, but I can show it to you visually that it'll make sense. Like it's everything the way you're talking about, and the staff knows this because they have to deal with it every day, is kind of situational. So if you document how you want the situation to be handled, you're in good shape. Like you just said, let me give you an example of, I'm going to just go on this next account, just kind of putting check marks next to the things that I've gotten done for you already. 100703. Okay. So the way you described, Megan described her situation is you could do more of a, since she knew it ahead of time. Okay, that's the key. She knew what she's talking about ahead of time. Maybe even before the customer paid or whatever. Then I would consider doing an adjustment with an audit trail to it. It sounded like that's the way you worded that to me. Like, hey, we talked, I made an agreement that we're waiving, whatever it was on this account. It's good. We're reducing it by $10 or something. That to me is more of a push the button, do an adjustment, which this one is a real straightforward adjustment. It just says, here's what the numbers are. What do you want them to be? And then it asks, why'd you do it? Okay. So that's what I hear when you describe that situation. I have tons of customers that do, they might waive a penalty or waive something, that's that. If it's at the time of the payment and kind of like you're making the decision at the time of payment, the customer's probably not really even involved. That to me is really more of a procedural thing where that's a write-off. So to me, what I tell people is write-off is at the time, a judgment made at the time of payment. Whereas an adjustment, you're doing something before you're taking the payment, not in the heat of the payment. Is that difference clear enough for now for everybody?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. It would give you, but remember, the main thing you want to do, and everybody in your business, we know this, the main thing you want is an audit trail. Why'd you do what you did? It's the same reason that again, Ann's had some real good suggestions to me, like where she's had me add entries into the notes table and the events log and stuff when they do certain actions, so they have a history of it. Those are good ideas. You know what I mean? Just kind of tell me them, and then I put them on our dev board out there for you guys, and we build them in. Sometimes we build them in super quick. Sometimes they take longer. Just depends what they are. But that's how it gets better, and you keep just improving your process. So I'm going to go back, and now this time I'm going to overpay that sucker. And that was the same 100703. And so let's just say that this is one of those things that we want to be tight on. So let's just say they pay $2,500 for some reason. Make it an easy thing. $140.28 too much. Everybody sees that in the difference field. And they do a check, and I'll stop before I get to the end, just in case you want to ask anything, because this is one of those things that was, in my opinion, messing with you guys, where you were trying to have to keep track of it on your own, and I don't want you to have to do that if you don't have to. So, at any time the amount is more than what's expected, it's going to result in an over scenario where you've got to pick something. So what are you picking? You giving them change? Well, you guys don't give change. There's nobody in your face. So that's not it. Add credit to account, adjust credit to zero. What do those two things mean? Add credit to account is what you think. Like in this case, if I do 140.28, it's going to put 140.28 in the credit field on that parcel. Okay. Now, we're not at the spot here where we want to judge why, what's the purpose of it. We're just saying what it's going to do. That's the point of training, is so that you know what it's going to do when you make a certain decision. Adjust credit to zero is what you guys have been doing more of. And that's what we're debating. Like, I don't know if that's what you want, because again, my reasoning is there are plenty of times where adjust credit to zero is absolutely the right choice. There's other times where it's going to make you have to remember something that I don't think you want to do. So here's my example. This person overpays by $1. You are not, and they're done. They're done. They're paying it off, and for some reason, they paid $1 to them. Normally that would be, no, we're not putting a credit on their account. We're going to hit the adjust credit to zero. What does that mean? It means accounting wise, I'm still going to document that properly. I'm going to document that we got the $1, that, everything's in there and cool, but I'm not putting it on their account. That's because every organization that I've ever worked with has thresholds. You know, and again, I usually pick $1 because a lot of cities use $1. You know, hey, if it's within $1, you know, $1 over, $1 under, you know, we either write off the, you know, the dollar, or we just adjust the credit dollar to 0, you know, when we're taking it. That's for you all to decide. I think you drive yourself crazy if you think your threshold is 0. I'm not saying it can't be, but I don't know if I would do that. But I would have some kind of amount, and maybe you already do. You know, I didn't really talk to you guys about that kind of stuff, about your thresholds, but maybe you do, and you should make that call. But here, like 140.28, if I don't document this, I mean, to me, that's a big enough number that should go add credit to account, and it's going to go right here where I picked add credit to account on the right side. And again, I can be more specific here even if I wanted to, which would be available to us on reports. But the standard thing that's been set up, which makes sense, is the client and then the credit receipt. You know, so this is Bethel Park, credit received, and then.
What is the threshold, by the way? Ann or Cindy, or do we know?
Don't know.
It's not a
Yeah.
set number. I'm sorry, did I miss here? I thought you guys said we weren't sure. I mean, is it just kind of, you know, fluid, or is it an actual number?
It's anything under $1.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, hell, maybe I got that from you. Maybe that's why the dollar was in my head. I don't know. but same point, you know, there you go. And then normally you'd write some kind of message why, you know, down there like I wrote, or like I just got overpayment on last payment, you know, something like that. So the idea of this though is just, now this is why this is important, and Cindy was talking about this too. We physically received $2,500. Okay, so it's important that we get that right number, because I know a long time ago, and I've got plenty of other customers that did this too. Okay, so when I say stuff like, hey, you guys used to do this a long time ago, it's not just you, everybody does these kind of things. That in the payment, they would just leave it at, you know, whatever the amount due was, you know, because it was being paid off. And then they would try and keep track of that extra somewhere else and then have to record it, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, man, why are you doing that? It's making your life harder. Now, a lot of times they have a reason why, but my point with whenever I talk with you all, it's about, hey, you guys are growing and you want to grow. So I need to be not being okay with these one-off ideas. I need to make it part of the process for you. So that way then things just happen and the results are consistent and you can get the info out that you need, as opposed to having to try and go back and remember something. So in this case, it's like, dude, you need to write in what they gave you. You know, you need to type in 2,500 and let the system do what it's supposed to do, so you can track it. And then, and here's the other reason. I'm sorry. I mean, there's just getting all of you in one spot at one time doesn't happen that often. So all the stuff is, it's like blah, trying to come out. There's these reasons that you guys have for doing that. Oh man, I just blanked. It was so good. Ann and I used to do it all the time. What the heck was it?
Well, hey, I have a question. So if it's $1 off, that is both over for an overpayment and under. So if someone underpays the amount due and it's a payoff and it's $1 short, we also do that then. Is that correct?
Which one? Either way? You saying $1 either way?
Yeah. And is that what we've been doing?
Oh, and it looks like on my screen that they're muted or something.
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah, I know that's Megan. Or is
Yeah.
everybody with
If
Megan?
we don't refund over $1 or under $1, and what?
Says that dollar for both ways, underpayment and overpayment.
Megan's person.
Hello?
Yeah, they are. It's just cutting out on her, on the mic is. I heard her say she's not used to that, the mic.
Yeah, we only refund if it's over $1, and we charge it off only if it's under $1.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
That was
I
our-
thought of this.
our past
Before I
practice.
forget, before I forget, because this is one that Ann would bring up, we would work on earlier, a long time ago, which was, and this is important for everybody on the call. A lot of the reasons or decisions early on were because they were unsure of how that would affect the output. You know what I mean? Like reports.
Sorry. We only refund if it's over $1 and we charge off only if it's under $1.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. But so what I was trying to get at was super important for you all is that whole idea of output is put it in properly. We all then can decide how it's used and on the output, forms and reports and stuff like that. But don't put yourself in a position where you are making the decision as it's coming in, because then one, I don't have the data that I need, and two, then I can't even help you on the back end. You know what I mean? Just do the process the same way through, and then we all can have better decisions on the output as we use it. That's super important, because the average user will always try and do what they think is right on this screen because they think it's going to have some effect later on. And I'm like, nah, don't try and predict that. It's not worth it. This idea of a credit, though, I probably have kind of beaten it. I mean, does this make sense, what I did?
Yes. Yeah, as long as we all get that you put in what you actually received, not what you think, to do. Even if this guy overpaid, this person underpaid, that you put in what actually was deposited in the bank, because that's the trail that Cindy needs.
Right, and the only thing that I've seen by the users in the data was it's to their advantage, since we have that threshold written down now, to know, hey, $1 credit, it's a credit adjustment to $0. Greater than $1, it's a credit on their account. And that way, then they won't have to try and guess on that stuff and account for it later, which is where it can get annoying. You can see there's that message on the form like we talked about.
I have a question on that. With that message section, I'm wondering if that can be used to, right now they're giving me a copy of a receipt and a copy of the check to make refunds. What if they were to, it's going to show up on there and on the payment receipt, I'm not sure we want it to, but what I was thinking was if they could put refund to be issued to and type that out in that box, would that be included in a report, Chris, when we're running a report of the refunds?
I think I already have it for you. I'm trying to remember if the field, itself, Cindy, hold on 1 second. My pen's dying. I'm trying to get it back. Okay. I'm going to write down that receipt is, the receipt number we just did is 23442. And that account again was 100-703. I want you to see this now. I think you guys are doing really well. So I want to move this forward a little bit, if you don't mind. Is that if I go to that account now, $100-703. Should see it right here. Oh, whoop, sorry, it moved on me. You see what I mean?
Right.
So like now that's tracked, because this is what clued me in earlier when I was like, we're not using this. We're not using it enough to make it easier on you, because on the dashboard, on the customer dashboard, you know what I mean? We had $7 in this field before. Now we've got real data in there where at any time, that is simply telling me what is in the credit field, okay, on every account. That's it. That, by the way, that came from that sheet that I was messing with the other day. So like at any time now, if we're doing this the right way flow-wise, you're going to have information where you can come in here anytime and see the accounts. And then, John, you always ask me this, like that's the credit we just did. And then that's if they still owe us money.
Right.
Okay.
And
So this is much better, because before, about 2 weeks ago or whatever, this was $7.50 in here. And I was like, there's no way. That can't be right. And it's not that it was right or wrong. It was just that the users were putting it all on themselves to try and track this stuff. I was like, I don't think they want to do that. It's not worth it. Okay. So I want you to see that. Okay, I thought that was important, is that we see how that is on their account. These probably don't owe anything. Well, let me see if I can find somebody. Oh wait, there, I'm lucky enough to find somebody. Like this sucker. By the way, you might ask that one, that looks strange to me, doesn't it?
Right.
So that's one worth looking at. Could be as simple as maybe it needed to be applied or something, but that's not what we're doing today. But like this sucker right here, 9202. I just want you to see this. You don't have to physically do it, but I want you to see what happens. 9202. 9202. That. So anytime that you have a credit on their account and you go to take a payment, it's going to come up with this and tell you this, that because I don't let you take credits and payments on the same receipt. So it's going to come up and say that, and then it's going to be here wanting to use that against what they owe. And that's called a credit applied. So we had credit received. This is credit applied. We're using the credit. And somebody might ask me, will that happen often for you guys? Not really. Usually anybody who's got a credit, you would do a refund, but I can think of a special circumstance that it could. You have, and Ann and Carly, and you back me up, is if I say it wrong, feel free to correct me, I don't mind. You've got somebody who owes you a crap ton of line items. And so we'll talk about that later, but that idea that it's more than 20 and you kind of got to break up the payment. Anytime that you are taking a payment against, say they have 10 line items, but you're only paying against 4 of them, and it looks like it's going to be an overpayment, you could have a scenario in the system where for that one payment, they are overpaying what you have said they owe for that one payment. But as soon as you do it, like John had said, like if you ran a statement though, when you were done, they would still have charges, but yet a credit balance on their account. That's probably the weirdest scenario I can try and bring up for you guys. I don't even know if it ever happens, but I thought I'd bring it up.
Can you discuss credit created, applied, to make sure that there's a understanding of the difference?
Did you say, make sure I heard you, received versus applied, or what was the other word?
Yes, received, credit received.
Yeah.
What that means, and then that same credit applied. Can you distinguish the difference between those?
Yeah,
two?
it's a really good point that users always want to make sure they understand that. We use 2 different terms on purpose. So that way, because I learned in an old system I designed, we just said the word credit. And it got confusing on the reports and stuff of, was that money coming in or was that money going out, or what was that? So it's much easier on the user to say credit received means I'm getting that money. I'm getting more money than they owe me in. I'm getting a credit. It's going to add to the credit balance on their account, credit received. And then using the credit, I'm going to use that against what they owe me. That's a credit applied. I'm applying it against the charges that they have currently due on their account. Now, for you all though, most of the time when they make an overpayment, it's at the end when they are trying to do a payoff and they pay too much, and that results in a credit, and then you're probably going to refund it out. Isn't that reasonable? Isn't that the most typical scenario, or is there one I may not be thinking of?
I think you're right.
Just
So
want to make sure.
if we're really on our game with credits, with managing the credits received and the credits applied, that we would move to, anytime we have a credit received on a timely basis, we would move to apply those credits as soon as we can, because we're going to apply them to any outstanding charge lines which affect the balance of the taxpayer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then same thing, if we're timely and on our game with credits, and we go to apply that credit and the credit amount exceeds the charges that they owe us, then that constitutes a refund, right?
Yeah. Are you asking me or just the staff?
Yeah, you, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so at that point, again, there's an effort, on Cindy's end that says, if we have on the books, first of all, if there are credit on the books, that they need to be applied as soon as possible to any outstanding tax charges. If it turns into a refund, we really want that refund to happen in the same month that we got the payment in the first place. So the ability to refund a customer's money needs to be like right up there with how we're taking a payment, because it's their money. None of it's our money, but the idea is to try to get refunds out the door on a timely basis. So that,
Sure.
especially in the same month, so that Cindy has some trail of what's going on there.
Yeah, I'll pick up the pace for you. I get where you're coming from. So I think everybody knows how to do this, but just in case. So when you took some payments for the day for, Bethel Park or whatnot, we want to get, this was another threshold thing, but you guys don't do with cash, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. So what's happening right now, I pick my session, I see the receipts they're inside of it. I do my counted totals for one report. My printed totals just show me, it's just basically a printout of what I just typed in. It's for counted versus calculated. I'm trying to think of how those could be different. It doesn't happen very often, so I'm just kind of sitting there like, how could your counted be different? Honestly, the biggest thing is typo. When you're keying in, like if you're adding up your ticker tape of like physical checks versus another thing. But I think you guys have some fancy thing that does that anyway, if I remember right. Like a printout from a bank thing that you got.
Well, the deposits every day, we have a deposit list.
Right.
That payments should be keyed in from the deposit list.
Yeah, I'm just saying that this part is the top level. It's the number. So when people are asking me, where's our number? This is the most important. This is that number you typed in during each payment.
Right.
That's why I said it's so important to type in what they gave you physically, because that's got to match against what's, on that bank sheet. So that way, you're good to go. And that'll create a difference if there's a due. See, behind the scenes, this is where I'm talking about data. Behind the scenes, I've got all the data for this. I've got the credit, whether it was an adjustment credit or a credit applied or a credit received or any of that stuff. I have all that in the data. So I don't need you to guess and try and help me. You just put it in the way it flows, and then I'll deal with it on the back end to give you that output. And then we balance that, which all that does, balancing that just moves it to the next. You guys rock on this stuff right now, so I'm not really going to spend time in here, and you've all watched videos on it too. So the idea here is you guys do that, and then you, I want to create another one, so in case we do another payment.
Yeah, Chris, if you could take us through, payment, balancing the session.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to do for you.
Balancing the session and then running a distribution to see the work. That would be awesome.
Right. So we did the first part, which is the first part of balancing your session is counting it up, making sure your money's cool. And then the second part is just the breakdown. That's all it's doing here. The reason we do it as a separate step is sometimes it's different people that do it. But in here, you could also, I think you guys are keeping it very true, which is one session, one deposit, go. So I'm just going to teach it that way. That's fine. So that's what I did. I grabbed one and then I run that report. Now, while it's going, there are buttons at the top, but this gives me the breakout of what just happened. This report, it is really good. And remember, the system is built up of line items. So it's very important. I should have mentioned this earlier. I'm sorry. When you're looking at somebody's account, you look at their account in terms of line items. Each line item is a charge, the tax portion or the penalty or the interest or whatever. But when we then put it on output, like tax certs and distributions and what, we roll those up into the categories that Ann helped me define, on the sheet. So when you look at somebody's account, you see line items. When you go to the certain area for collection agencies, the output is grouped in terms of columns. It takes those and puts them into columns, grouping them the way that you all want. So the deposit report is done in terms of line items. It's adding up everything in terms of, penalty versus this versus that. And it gives me those outputs, and then I'm going to finalize. Now, while I'm in here, there are things to help you in case something gets screwed up. Okay, and we all have used these functions before. Take a payment in the wrong session, use move receipt, and move it into the proper session. You don't get a lot of that right now, but when you turn on the ability to let people make payments online, I can see that is a very common mistake. Like, you'll take some payments, balance out those payments that came in online and forget to up the number on that session. So it's real easy to fix. All you do is create a new session and then move that receipt into it. But that's a common thing that happens in those areas. And then I'm going to finalize that. So up to this point, I could have fixed anything. I could have voided a payment and retaken it. But if I had finalized, it's supposed to be done at that point. And that's when we're moving it into the history, more permanent history. It's called payment history. And here's my point in saying that it will not show up on a distribution report until it has been finalized. The finalized moves, and by the way, for anybody on the front lines who may not have known that last thing I just said, that's why I know that like John and the team are so adamant about, hey, we really want to push to get these payments in a, I don't want to say timely because you guys are always doing them, but like in a prompt manner, because it helps us see if everything's cool faster instead of waiting till the end of the month. I had this one city, and I tried to tell her this. It's like, she would do all of her online payments from citizens. She would only balance it once a month. And I'm like, listen, why are you waiting to the end of the month to do those? Because if anybody screwed something up along the way on those, it's much harder to solve it, solve the issue. So in this case, by hitting finalize here, that we're cool, that allows us to run a distribution report, which is why, again, we remember we went through that phase where we had a lot of sessions out there when we were getting caught up, and we were all like, we really don't want those out there, because I couldn't tell you how it was going, until they got balanced to do this. Like I just said, till they got finalized and put into the history. That's why it's so important, and why I'm so kind of annoying about it, because I know the impact that it has on you all. Because as soon as I do that, I can go to the collection agency dashboard. And now, okay, this is important for you to know. Anything on the collection agency dashboard is using those grouping tools I told you about, where it doesn't view them as line items, it views them as columns, like, a tax column versus the fees versus the penalty or interest and that kind of thing. Okay, and this will be my example, because there's the things that we just did. Okay, and do you see what I mean? How now they're in columns, they're not line items anymore.
Right.
Right, and so then this is break. Now the different about a distribution report, I've seen some examples and that are different than this. The way we designed it with you guys is, even if it's one receipt, if they paid off multiple years, you would see like two lines. Like if they paid 19 and 20 on one, but it was one payment, the way you guys wanted it designed, it will show up on two lines. You'll see the 2020 line, you'll see the 2019 line, even though it's the same receipt. So that's important to know as well, that it's not about the receipt necessarily, because of the way you guys like to do that with the line items. So you could have more entries in here than you actually had receipts. Tim, please tell me that part made sense. Your silence means yes.
Ian, you there?
You guys, you okay with that?
We're here. I just can't always tell if he's talking to us
Okay,
or if he's talking to John.
I'm talking,
Yeah.
I'm more so making sure that the people that have to use it know what they're getting on the output side. The only reason I bring this one up is because a lot of, everybody was wondering is like, why are we so adamant? Why is Chris so annoying about needing the sessions balanced and finalized? And it was simply for this, because if we do this, we instantly know where we stand, and we don't have to wait till the end of the month. It's boom, there it is. And we know.
Right. We get that. We've been doing that.
Okay, that's cool. All right. So that's good stuff. Now let me go off of that, John. That goes through the flow that you were talking about, okay?
Yeah, I have a quick question. When someone has tax charges that span over a couple of years, so let's just say 2019, they have charges in 2020, okay?
Uh-huh.
When I put a payment in, it's following the pecking order that we know is there, right? Is that going back to the oldest tax year? Is that applying that payment first to the 2019?
Yeah, by default, it goes to oldest to newest.
Okay.
And
Thank
then Ann gave me an order that works real well. That it's like from inside of there, it goes like fees and something, then penalty, then
Yeah.
But that's how it works. Yeah, you are correct. Okay, now this sucker, I'm just gonna pay. Here's the scenario. I'm gonna pay too much, and then I'm going to refund it out maybe? Does that work?
How about if so you pay too much, and can you apply it to an account and then do the refund?
Well, not to be goofy, but that's kind of this. I don't even know if you need me to. That's the same thing we were just doing with the.
Okay,
one.
Got it. Fair. That's fair.
But I think what you guys are in the zone for is like I'm trying to ducktail this into what Cindy just asked about the refund. So I was like, and maybe it would feel like it flows better if I just go straight from, hey, I'm going to overpay this, and then I'm going to show you how you would get rid of it.
Right.
Okay. So let's just say that that they paid $2,000. Okay, like right there. Oops, payment time. Where are you? There you are. Check. Dang it, gotta do it in order. Sorry, gang, gotta do it again. If you don't do that in order, it won't give you the drop down back again. Okay, 2,000. Okay, so that was that one. So I need, I want that from, dang, it's stuck. Pen's gotta work better. 3, 2, 4, 3. Okay. Okay, so that one's done. It's got an overpayment. It's got a credit on it. So the next thing that happens, do I need to go to it, but did everybody accept the fact that on this account, you would see the credit field has a dollar amount in it, like 184? Does that make sense?
Correct.
Okay. So this is the part on a refund that might feel like 2 steps. Okay. But it's because you have to get the credit off of their account. So typically, Now this is going to be up to your procedure. So I got to watch the way that I say this from a teaching perspective. Say you're cranking through these payments and you get them done. So then what a lot of customers do is they don't do it the same moment. They usually do that like, whatever, like once a week, they're going to say, hey, let's do refunds. That's normally when they run that credit balance report that I showed you, where it showed me every credit on the account. But again, not for me to say which, I just want you to understand what has to happen. This is what has to happen, is that we're going to now mess with two things that you may not have even messed with yet. The idea of a credit memo and a refund. Okay, so I'm going to first talk about the credit memo. What is a credit memo? We do not let you just type in a dollar amount into the credit field on an account. It'd be too easy to mess with that. We don't let you just, hey, I need to add a $10 credit to somebody's account for whatever reason, or hey, that credit is not right. We need to reduce it. We need to remove it, whatever, from their account. Those are done through a credit memo. And I'm going to do that right now. We're going to remove the $180 from that dude's account. And so that is the idea of right here, add credit memo. And I'm going to pick that because he'd be on my list right here. Shows right there's the current credit balance on it right over there. And this screen is super easy, but it's right here. I pick a session that I'm doing them in. I usually do them in their own session because, again, this is not real money. It's not real money, so I don't want to account for it like I'm taking it or something.
So this would be a good place if you could add who to give the refund to for Cindy part.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting to see
Well,
how far.
Wait, I got one more part for you. I'm with you guys. I totally agree with you. So hold on. This isn't actually that screen. Okay. This is this may sound annoying, but it's because it's separate. It needs to be. This is just making the credit field on this dude's account 0. This isn't the actual refund yet. Okay. The credit memo is you saying I need to either add to or subtract from what is currently in the credit field on this guy's account. And don't go there already because we've already talked about this. I know you guys will say, well, why don't you just roll this into the refund? I'm just saying when we did this, we made them 2 steps on purpose at first. So that way then it was safe and it was flexible. That's it. But watch what I do. I mean, all I'm doing is putting it in there. I'm hitting reduce. I hit create. And now that's done. So that way that guy does not have a credit on his account anymore. And then I do the physical refund.
How do I know, Chris? If I do 10 of these at a time, I take something from credit receive and I do what you just did, which is to apply them. Now I'm on this screen. How do I know where's my list of the ones that I just made from receive to applied?
Every one of these things, I didn't bother doing it yet, but you guys know every one of these things has the report that goes with it for the date range.
Awesome.
Yeah, everything that I do has that kind of date range report right after it. So normally that is what, but I am assuming the same person probably does this part. I'm just giving you the example of how we go through here. So when I went to the refund screen, you're going to see that it looks like almost identical to what I just did. On purpose, we did it. Is that you say, hey, on this account, I want to do a refund. And it's telling you this stuff. Now, listen, right here, it says it. If you want to reduce a credit amount, you must do a credit memo along with a refund. We're telling you this. So please don't get judgy on me yet, because I know you guys, you always want to improve it. I know you're going to say, just roll it all together. I get it already. If you want me to, I'll put it on the board. Just teaching you how to do it right now. So it's boom, date, session, reason. And yeah, by the way, you could have put even more. I didn't write anything of this down. I wasn't watching on him, but you know, something. Give me whatever you want. Okay. So you have all the content from the report, like John just asked me. So I'm just going to write some stuff. I didn't write it down. You know that. Bethel. And I'm going to hit create. And again, this is there's a receipt for everything. The reason we're doing this will put a receipt on their account, like on the payments tab on the receipts. So you'll have all that. But the output, this is Ann and Cindy, this is what I was talking about, is if there's other info, but this is where I was getting at, is this is what they would give you. Like Cindy, if you're the one writing these checks or whoever's writing them,
Right.
this has the date, the account, the receipt that we did it on, the amount that's involved, the message that went with it, the owner, the mailing address. It has everything on it. So that way, then you could actually know who to write the check to or whatever, all the information that you would need.
Well,
If there's something additional, you just got to tell us. But this is the content that came from all of our municipal customers.
So my question is unbalanced and balanced in this report. Like how are we seeing this if this is, shouldn't this be just be balanced ones?
No, I'll teach you that in a minute. But the idea is when Cindy, this is for closure, so you don't do anybody twice. When she does this and prints it off or sends it to Excel, she hits the word finalize and it changes the transaction. So that way, then you wouldn't do a refund twice for the same person.
Okay, so, and the mailing location, that's not necessarily going to be the address all the time though, right?
Correct.
Because, so how can we, possibly that message column, would they be able to put in if the address that I'm sending the refund to or the person is even different? Sometimes they get payments from somebody else on an account that might be paying it for them. Can she type in on that message, send refund overpayment to, and put a name and address on it?
We can do anything. I just have to see how long it is. But you're right that the easiest thing right away, like, that would work out of the box is how long is that message field? Because the other fields, it's dynamically pulling it from the parcel record at the time that I run this.
Okay,
Name it, this stuff over here, that's dynamic from what's on the parcel.
right, and if that's not the person that made the payment, then that's not where the refund's gonna go. So, I'm just trying to think if there's a way we could use that. I don't know how long your message box is there, how many characters?
That's what I was telling you. I don't know. I have to ask the guys.
Yeah.
I don't know the length of it.
Okay,
But off the cuff, you're with the right ideas. You can put anything you want in there. But this is the first time you all have even seen this. So I wanted to make sure you knew the flow of events of how it works.
right. And that's why you can see, and if you guys go through that and put all these refunds in, a report like that's can give me everything I need.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. That's why I wanted you to see it. And like John had asked me, he's like, well, what is it, a balance, unbalance? The idea is to finalize this. So that way then it's marked as, hey, we did these. You know what I mean? We did this.
The other thing I'm thinking they could do is if they bump that report out to Excel, she can add any notes and then give it to me.
Well, in an ideal scenario, if you could find out where that info might be ahead of time, maybe we can grab it for you. Because
Right.
then again, I know the goal is to put less after the fact work on the team, the team up
Right.
front.
Yeah.
So if there's, you just got to be creative about it. It's like, I don't know when or where the info.
Okay.
But it's got to be recorded somewhere, obviously,
Well, the info may not be in your system though.
True.
And and you could probably give an instance better than I could think of one where, a refund would be made to somebody where there'd be no info in the system on that person. if it's not the property owner?
So that would be if we received a payment on, I mean, we get payments for, so they accidentally send it here, but it was actually for the current year taxes and needed to go to the current collector. Or if somebody paid an account off 6 months ago and we don't get the sheriff's sale check until now, that account would be completely done. And we would have that full check would be refunded. We'd have to go back and find who paid the original payment.
Okay.
Chris, when we do a refund like this, if I go to the main screen for the taxpayer and I pick the transactions, is this going to show up as one of the transactions?
Yeah, you saying, is it in their history that you did it? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, who was that? 100,706. As long as we tell it to display it, which I think I am displaying those right now. I just have to ask myself, like,
Transaction register, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
there you go.
receipts. Okay,
so that was
you-
the original. And then
Did you
that
pick
was when
transaction
I
register?
removed it. And then that's the refund.
okay, can you go back one, please?
One, you mean like to the main screen for
Yeah.
that account?
Yep. Pick transaction register.
That's, okay. That's not what you think, but okay. Like for them, they probably don't have that. That's new.
All right.
That's all right. Sorry. I'll
We'll
lead
have to
you
talk
through
about
the,
that.
we are actually working on that one where it's going to give a full transaction of everything that's happening on that account.
Right, but we're really looking for that.
Yeah, oh yeah. But the other, well, I mean, I'm recording all of these now, like you said, on the receipts and such. I mean, I have, as long as it's being done like this. If it's not being done, that's my whole point in all this, to try and make it easier on the workers. Like if they can do the flow, it'll give you the data that you want.
Okay,
So the only thing I took from that, again, is my opinion is for you all, I know we don't really have a defined process on that yet, but it's like, hey, here's the steps. And then you just decide, like I said, most people don't do refunds every day, but I mean, that's up to you. But, you know, you kind of run the first report, see them, and then do your credit stuff and you run your report so you know which ones you got to do.
okay. Can we cover what happens with an NSF, please?
Yeah, let's see. Oh man, what was one of those? Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find. Hold on. Let me go check this one. Just the, because we bounced around a little bit, so I'm just like, well, wait a minute. Where one? Three, two. 32440. So the idea of that, and then that was that being. Okay. So you get a bad check back and you need to do a return. Return is because it's already been finalized out. So if you void a payment, it's because you haven't balanced it yet and you just want to void it and redo it. If you do a return, that's like a return check. It's because the session that you're in has already been finalized out. And from a geek standpoint, the void looks in the pending area. The returns look in the payment history. That's the gist of it. So I type in 32440. I type in the receipt number. Shows me that receipt that we're talking about.
So that returns the amount that was put in, it returns it to what it was prior to that payment.
Yeah, so if we go to that guy's account now, 100.
Chris?
Yeah, I hear you.
Does it, I'm back to the pecking order, okay? Does it put the money back in the buckets that it took it out of?
Exactly.
Okay,
That's why it's so important on each line, and Ann and the team know this already, but on each line item on a receipt, that's why we say how much went towards each, thing,
yep,
because he uses the same line items to then say, oh, it was that much that needs to go back, onto that line part. So you can see this dude still owed, now they owe you, that 1,800 again, or whatever it was, they owe that again. And then the part you need to do is right here. Do you see this add charge?
right,
You hit that. And you can, now listen, I don't know how specific you want to be about this. I created a generic NSF code for you. It's alphabetical. It's right there. Because I figured it's your money, not the client's.
well, so we have, Ann, if this is correct, we have two charges. We have the bank fee and we have a recovery fee associated with each NSF. Is that right, Ann?
The recovery fees is the bank fee. It's a $15 fee. And then the other fee is an attorney fee. That's $20 plus the postage fee, which would be the certified letter fee.
You guys do those as 3 separate ones or one or what?
Right now we do them as 3 separate.
Okay. So again, my example is just, I wasn't sure, so I just did a generic one. Let me just pop that on there because it's going to default to a flat amount of $20. See what I mean?
Yep.
So Ann's got a better handle on this than I do, like the way she said that is, it's all about the level of detail you guys want. If it's one line item or two or whatever. I just did what our customers normally do, which is, they put some kind of $20 or $35, whatever, NSF fee on there.
Chris,
So are we still permitted to put so the NSF fee was for 2020 tax year. Are we permitted to put that in as for the 2020 because that's what tax year it goes to? Or do we need to put it as 2021?
Yeah, I was actually wondering that too, is like, because to me, it doesn't matter. I don't care what we do, what we decide on. It's just the math, like how it works. But I was like, NSF, that's another one. It's like, I guess it depends on your payment order, how you want it paid off.
It should be on the top.
I know. I'm thinking that's almost like the 111. You know what I mean?
Right. 2021 isn't going to let it get paid first. It's going to get paid
No,
last.
I agree. In this case, it would be last. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Ann's right about that. I mean, so again, it depends. I mean, the process that I did wasn't hard. I mean, everybody saw it. I do a return. It puts the money back on the account. The charges back on the account. And then you add whatever you need. Sounds like you guys actually have a little bit more detail than the cities do, that you do a couple line items. But you got to make sure we put it in the right order so it gets paid off the way you want.
Can they select that?
They select what? No. It's all about how it's set up. Like I was saying, like how Ann and I have those fees in there that are tax year 111 because it makes sure that they go first.
Okay.
It just depends on your pecking order of what you're trying to do. Like what she said, I like Ann said too. She's like, hey, wonder if that should be tax year 2020. Because then it's set up, it's probably, the category it has is probably set up as a cost or a fee, which get paid first before taxes and, and interest and stuff.
Right. Chris, will that return of the payment show up on the distribution report? Or going to take the whole thing off?
You know what? I don't know if we've reasoned through that yet. It's really good. Like, what would it show? I need to look at that to see what the line items look like and how they'd come on yours, because I don't know if you would actually. I don't think your distribution report's designed for negatives. Like that. I mean, I think that's probably something we need to investigate.
So it'd probably take it probably would exclude the whole payment then. Correct.
Honestly, the best answer is it's all about what the data looks like. Because see, if you were talking about just a normal report, I could probably guess that one already. But you're talking about the distribution report, which does all those special formulas on it. So my first thing is like, does it qualify? You know, and then I was like, well, what would it look like? Because I don't know if it would subtract it automatically, which is what you're asking me, aren't you?
Yeah,
I don't know if it would show it as a negative. I doubt it would. But all we could do is just, kind of do it and then run it and see how that would qualify. We just need to look at it.
yeah, I'd like to see how that shows up, or if it
Well,
shows.
let's be real. That's about where we are right now. You guys done a great job of getting the flow on all that front end stuff. And then we identified these things, with those credit adjustments and such. We're like, hey, let's go focus on this now and make sure that it affects the output the way we want it to.
Right, okay.
Those were all the topics I had written down. And I don't know how much time you guys budgeted. I'm sorry if I took you over. I know it's probably more than you thought, but it so far, really good content,
Yeah, hey, Chris, this is a pretty good system. You should sell this to other people.
I'm trying, but some people keep talking to me every day. No, it is. And listen, and you guys have made it really good too. I mean, things are keep getting better and better. No doubt about it. No doubt. And so I think this next part of focusing on what would make the flow better for you guys, so less volatile, less having to think about it. That's definitely a good thing.
Okay, do you guys have any questions on that? Do you understand taking the credits and refunds to the end?
No questions here.
Okay. Guess that's it then.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I didn't screw up your guys. I didn't screw up your actual account. This is on our dev site, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, but I'll leave this up for a little bit. If there's something that you guys want, John, if we need to mess with something just to experiment, I'll leave it on our dev site for a little bit while I'm doing some other work.
Yeah, just, this last point that we had, we're going to run into that quickly. And that's since we're going to start to do all these refunds in the system, we do need to know how that plays out on a distribution report, because just from looking at it, I don't think it should, because distribution report is the outflow of money to clients from what we collected. And NSF refunds doesn't fall under that, but we're going to need to deal with that pretty soon.
Well, here's my point is let's keep this up here or spin up another version of it for you on a different instance. So that way we could do all this here without messing with the team, on their day-to-day stuff in the data. We do refunds here. We do anything we want to see what it looks like on the output.
Well, so here's a great example then. This guy you just did a refund for, or this NSF for, if we now run, who is this? What district is this?
It's not quite as easy as you're about to say, because what I got to do is I have to go back and look at the data and think, okay, what session does it have on it? It probably put it in the new session. How's it balanced? Probably isn't even balanced yet. Like I've got stuff that I need to go look at first before I do that on the fly.
Okay. Well, all right. So we know it's on our list.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. Cool.
Okay.
All right, nice. That was good. Hey, I really appreciate everybody making time for this. I know it's not easy. I know you got 10 million things going on, but I do appreciate it.
Thanks for everything, Chris.
Okay, I'll hit save so you all can have access to this if you need it, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Absolutely. Awesome.